So we were absolutely breathing in airborne mold that can disrupt your immune function, endocrine system, your detox pathways, all of these things. And the symptoms of mold can be the very things that I have talked about. Not always is it an allergy response. Like, they could be, everybody processes different toxins and burden differently. So the common things would be, oh, you should be fine. You don't have like allergies. And you would never think to connect to these types of like mystery dots to mold, right?
Right.
So that was a big aha for me. Then we did a mycotoxin test. Sure enough, I had high levels of mold in my body.
I'm sitting here thinking I had black mold in my college bathroom, and we had a slumlord, and he did not give a crap about what was going on. There were 6 girls living in that house. I was there 2 years. I was the second person in the household to get a cancer diagnosis in my 30s. I'm sure something that contributed. And everyone and every body is uniquely different in the way that we're able to handle a toxic burden. Welcome to the Forward Think Tank podcast, a place of hope, inspiration, and education around holistic health and healing. I'm your host, Jamie Mazza, a holistic health coach, mental health advocate, and dancer. Join me as I share out-of-the-box conversations with integrative doctors, healers, and exceptional forward-thinking individuals thriving on the other side of their health challenges, as well as stories from my own personal healing journey. Thank you for tuning in. I'm so happy you're here. Hello, friends. This week on the Forward Think Tank, I have a guest who is very special to me. I got the chance to interview my now friend, Callie Moynihan. She is somebody I found at the very beginning of my diagnosis. As you may or may not know, thymoma is extremely rare. And I went on Instagram and I searched for the hashtag thymoma, and I happened to find her. She was one of very few, if like less than a handful of people who even hashtagged thymoma. And she happened to document a lot of her journey, going through multiple surgeries, one very major surgery, and documenting her healing process. So I reached out to her at the height of all of my fear and all of the unknown after my diagnosis, and we connected and instantly developed a friendship. When you go through something like this, it's hard to understand it unless you're in it. And Callie was so generous and gracious with her time, her energy, her suggestions, her resources. I have been so grateful for her in my life. You'll see towards the end, I'm just overwhelmed with tears because I'm so thankful to have her as a friend. She's introduced me to a couple other women across the US that also have been diagnosed with thymoma and have gone through their own unique healing journeys. And it's just very special to me to have these girls in my corner as a support system to bounce resources off of. And Callie is just a beaming light of hope, inspiration, of determination. She is definitely a research girl. She did a lot of her own research with getting her diagnosis at the beginning and very height of the pandemic. She takes us through her journey of healing from 2 different surgeries, having the birth of her son Maverick in between, which was a true miracle, as she explains. And she really takes us through the process of navigating being an advocate for yourself and finding functional medicine doctors and practitioners, who are unconventional, similar to people that I've worked with and talked to on this podcast. And she takes us through that experience of learning how to develop a better relationship with your body, take care of yourself, take charge of your health, work on your mental health, on your nervous system, and heal your body from the inside out. It was such a beautiful conversation, as I knew it would be. And I'm so grateful to Callie for having the courage, truthfully, because this is not a journey that everybody wants to talk about, but also for having the wisdom that she has and using that. I had seen a couple of interviews that she had done when I first found her, and I could see that she really wanted to use this as a pain to purpose, as she says, and share her experience to help other people learn from what she's learned. And I think that is beautiful. And I'm using this podcast as a platform to do the same. So it was a very comfortable, friendly conversation. Of course, a lot of it is serious stuff, but you know what? We live and we learn through these hardships in life. And she is such a testament to believing in yourself, to true healing, and really doing the inner work to heal. So a little bit more about Callie. Callie Moynihan's healing journey began in the midst of the pandemic with a life-altering cancer diagnosis. Just 2 months after welcoming her first child, she faced a devastating reoccurrence, but rather than surrendering to her circumstances, she took the wheel and began rewriting the script of her diagnosis. Over the past 5 years, Callie has radically transformed her lifestyle, pursuing balance and homeostasis across mind, body, and soul. After living with chronic pain for more than a decade, she became deeply committed to listening to the body's signals, treating symptoms not as setbacks, but as clues to pointing towards deeper healing. Her journey has been anything but linear, requiring constant adaptation and self-reflection. Through it all, Callie has emerged stronger, more connected, and more alive than ever before. In this episode, she shares the raw truth behind her healing process, the power of listening to your body, and what it really means to take control of your own health story. Prepare to be inspired, challenged, and reminded of the incredible resilience within us all. And these words couldn't be more true. She is a beam of light. She is resilient. And what I love about our conversation is that she talks about all of these new lifestyle changes that she started to implement, which sometimes people can look at that and say, wow, this is overwhelming. This is too much. She instead took it and said, how can I create more joy in my life? How can I use this? Like, this is my new way of living now. This is going to be my day to day. How can I make it a little bit more fun? And that is something that I truly have learned to live by as well. So it's so beautiful the way that she has really put a whole new perspective shift on her healing process, being dealt this very difficult card. Callie, I love you so much. I'm so grateful for your friendship. This episode is one that I truly think so many people will find inspiration from, admiration, and if you are going through a diagnosis yourself, you will learn so much and have so many takeaways from her conversation. So please welcome Callie Moynihan to the Forward Think Tank. Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Forward Think Tank. This week, I have somebody so near and dear to my heart. Honestly, it does bring a little tear to my eye because this woman sitting in front of me through the screen has become a very close friend very quickly. I found Callie Moynihan on Instagram, thank God for social media, when I first got diagnosed with a thymoma, literally looked up the hashtag thymoma, and thank God, Callie, that you had some posts talking about your journey because I was so grateful to find you as not just a resource and somebody that I can share this experience with, but as a friend. And I think over the last year plus, you've been such a support system to me. You and I have shared so many conversations. It means so much because, as you know, thymomas are rare. We've found like 4 girls across the entire country that have been diagnosed with this, that even though each of us are a little bit uniquely different, we share a lot of similarities and a lot of the same thought processes. So having you as part of my support team and part of my now network of friends has just truly been invaluable to me. So the fact that you're willing to share your story, sit here and talk to me, and like I tell everybody who comes on the podcast, whether they are a practitioner or somebody who has gotten on the other side of their health crisis, I know that every conversation is going to inform somebody, educate somebody, inspire somebody, and possibly save somebody's life. So I really appreciate you being here. Thank you so, so, so much. It means the world to me.
You're welcome, Jamie. And what you've done with your story and using it as a platform has been incredible to witness as a friend, as a fellow cancer thriver. Sharing the wisdom is not easy. And like also in tandem with going through all of the healing therapies that you're doing day in and day out, it takes a lot of capacity to be able to share this type of content with people. And that just shows your character. And I'm just so proud of you and proud to know you and call you a good friend at this point. The things that we share, people don't fully understand, right? We connect in a way that others don't. And I can share things with you that I don't even share with my husband. So it's just a beautiful gift to have found somebody. And like you said, our other girls in our little circle that we can confide in. So thank you. And thank you for letting me be on your podcast and sharing what I can to your audience.
Absolutely. I mean, listen, I couldn't wait to have you. And I think, meet a very unique group of people when you get hit with this type of diagnosis. The people that I have connected with have a very similar mindset as you do, as I do. That's just like, let's do what we need to do. Let's focus on the healing. Let's get through the hard stuff. And the hard stuff's not easy. You don't sugarcoat any of that. But let's get to a point where I can enjoy life again. And I see the lessons. So we'll talk about that, or things that you can turn around and be grateful for as a result of going through something so incredibly traumatic. It's something that's a timestamp on your life that you don't ever forget, but you can learn how to move through it and thrive. So I would love for you to open this conversation. Tell me a little bit for people listening who aren't familiar with you and your story, about yourself, and maybe what was going on in your life leading up to the diagnosis. And
actually, May 8th will be my 5-year anniversary of when I first went to the ER. So it was May 8th, 2020, height of pandemic. I had just turned 30 in March. And right before that, so in February, I had decided to up and quit my career in corporate marketing and start to pursue real estate. And so this had taken years of overcoming myself and my fears, and a lot of time that in my 20s, which I'll get to kind of later on, as to some chronic conditions that I suffered with that really kind of held me back in ways that I wanted to progress in life. So at 30, I recognized that I wanted to make some changes. And so quit my career, turned 30, was going to dive into entrepreneurship and something that I'd always thought I'd wanted to do. And then, the world shut down. And then, so May 8th was actually the date we were supposed to set off for our honeymoon. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh my gosh, I didn't.
Everything was canceled. Some of it we got our money back, some of it we didn't.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden I had developed some chest pain. And I was like, I think maybe I have COVID.
Yeah.
It progressively got worse through the day, and it kind of started going down my arm, and I was more confused as to what the symptoms were that were happening. So in the wee hours of the morning, I wake up my husband and I'm like, we need to go to the ER. Something's not right.
Yeah.
So we get there, do an x-ray, and the ER doctor is dumbfounded. He comes in and he's like, look, you have an orange-sized tumor that looks to have ruptured. There was a leakage in the imaging of like a kind of fading into, the outside of the space. And so within that hospital, they did not have a thoracic surgeon there. So luckily I was able to have my husband drive me to the other hospital, and that was on a Friday. I got dropped off by my husband because he could not come in because it was pandemic times.
Yep.
So he dropped me off, not knowing when he was going to see me again.
Oh, I have the chills.
I know. So, and then at that time too, we didn't even know if I could have personal belongings in the hospital. It was, looking back, just what a time to have gone through that type of experience.
Yeah.
So I got dropped off on a Friday. We had to wait until the surgeon came on a Monday. So I was managing pain for 2 days, like full drugged, had to
They
suffer
kept you in the hospital then.
Yeah, suffer through an MRI, which was like a core memory for me, when you're in such pain and can't lay and you have to just lay there. And so I had the surgery, and then after 6 days came home, and luckily I did have personal belongings. I was able to watch Netflix. I was pretty drugged up at that time, so I was feeling okay.
Yeah.
And a pathology came back weeks later that it was stage 2 thymoma, and stage 2 being because it had leaked. And so that was a spillage of cells that could metastasize, even though they had clear margins of removing the tumor. So we were virtually talking. I was laying in my bed with my husband when we found out the news, or sitting on the bed. And he was like, all right, you need to recover from surgery and prepare for chemo. So I spent that summer in the mindset of preparing for chemo and only knowing what my oncologist told me, right? I knew nothing about how to support my body in that time. And so I did start to learn about receiving second opinions, and my oncologist did start to reach out as well, because thymoma is 1% or less than 1% of cancers. Luckily, the board of thoracic oncology experts kind of come into play. But the problem with that is they can have mixed opinions about how to treat, because there is no clear path. Like when you have breast cancer or colon and you're like, this is XYZ, this is what you do, this is the path, and you're done.
Yep.
That isn't so clear with thymoma. And there was some mixed opinions. And then I ended up getting a PET scan that summer that indicated no current evidence of disease. So we decided to halt on any treatment and just observe and watch, basically in a waiting period. They were like, we know it's probably going to happen. It's just a matter of when we hit it with the chemo. I went on that summer and I was like, okay, I dodged a bullet. I'm going to just de-stress my life and just enjoy life, even though it was still COVID times. I was living with more fear than I ever had, because
I can imagine.
I never had thought, too, we would be faced with a pandemic where our external environment brought up more fear as well. So it was a lot of things that I felt like I could not control, but I made peace with the fact that I was able to kind of halt everything and get back to life. So I got my real estate license finally, because that was temporarily shut down. The centers were shut down. I couldn't even get my license.
Yeah.
So I started to resume life, and then I ended up getting pregnant. So it was a couple months later. Actually, I should say I had started IVF treatment right before that PET scan. Because, they were concerned about, obviously, once I started chemo, my ability to carry a child. And I knew that that was something that I had wanted to keep open. So luckily, I was able to get my money back once we decided that we were done. I was only 4 shots in to IVF treatment. And 2 months later, find out I'm pregnant. So I don't know if that had anything to do with it. Looking back, maybe not. I don't know. But it was such a blessing in my life, because it gave me more meaning. It gave me an opportunity to reflect on a lot of pain and suffering that I had mentally, emotionally. And this time that I was carrying a child, I was allowing myself the freedom to just be, and to do yoga, and to just kind of take that time for myself. So my pregnancy was really beautiful and full term. I had Maverick June of 2021, and it was blissful. Everything was going great. I was breastfeeding. But as you know, and as other people may know, you can't get a scan while you're pregnant. So in the back of my head, I was dreading that next scan. I knew it was coming. And I waited 2 months after having Maverick to get the courage to go do it. And sure enough, they found it had metastasized. And it was a mass that developed like a 6 centimeter, and then another little nodule that had metastasized in the pleural cavity, which was case scenario, right, of metastases. So that just shook our world upside down, faced with just having a baby, faced with death as you just gave life.
Yeah. And the fact that just to back up on what you were saying and talking about kind of resetting yourself and your mindset at the height of the pandemic, when there's so many unknowns being thrown your way, and this diagnosis, and the possibility of chemo, and going through IVF, and then getting pregnant, it's like boom, 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 all these changes. But you were, to the best of your ability, of course, like nobody's perfect, go inward, it sounds like, and say, okay, like I'm going to appreciate life. I'm going to get back to real estate. I'm going to enjoy. Then you find out the news of getting pregnant, and it's this amazing blessing and you're like, I'm going to go through my pregnancy. It was a beautiful experience. You were able to carry full term, like all of these things. I think it's just a testament to how strong you maybe didn't even know that you were at that time. So just to interject, because I mean, as an observer to that story, it's like, wow, I know so many people in that situation that may not have handled it as strong mentally as you did. So it's very admirable.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So, yeah, I get the new diagnosis, and with thymoma, the primary course of action in the conventional world is if it can be surgically removed, that is the avenue to go, because as we kind of have gathered, chemo doesn't necessarily work. It's considered palliative, not curative. And then with it being in the pleural cavity, it's hard to treat it with a radiation because of the fluid and just kind of like where it is in the body. So with that said, surgery was the best route. Luckily, it was pretty localized on my right side. And this is, I think, a common statement that I'm about to say, that that world will be like, okay, you're young, you're healthy. Let's do the most aggressive way to treat this so that you could have the best outcome. Yeah. And so with that, I got in for surgery a month after finding out. So it was very quick.
Very quick.
And this is when surgeries were being delayed and prioritized because of COVID and allowing capacity in the hospitals for those incidences. So it was very selective as to when and who could go in for surgery. So mine was deemed critical, and I ended up getting COVID like 2 weeks before surgery to the day.
Wow. Did that delay your surgery date?
No, because it was, the 14-day, it was exactly 14 days. And then, you know how things come in threes, people say. So I was going in for surgery, got COVID, and experienced my first tornado. You can't make this up. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Wow. That's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oddly, when you were talking about like getting COVID, like right before your surgeries, I remember when I finally wrapped my head around going through chemo, which at this point it happened, I had gotten COVID right before. And so we had to push it off. But it's just like, it's interesting when those things happen, because I was like, oh, is that my body trying to tell me don't do it?
Right.
That's how I was taking it at the time, because I didn't want to do it.
I feel like if I had a more holistic practitioner at that time, they would have maybe assessed my body and made sure it was geared up for surgery. Yeah. But conventionally speaking, and they look at the bare minimum essentials in order to get you through surgery. So
yes,
that's how it was. So I went in and they removed the right side of my diaphragm and replaced it with mesh, and then stripped the pleural lining of that lung. So everything was on the right side. And
so was mine. Did we talk about this?
No, we didn't.
That's so interesting. I wonder if there's something to that. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah. And because it was my mass, the bigger one was kind of attached to my diaphragm. So that was the concern with the diaphragm. And then they did end up removing a little portion of my right lung during that operation. And then I had a emergency situation that my vena cava tore because of a nodule that was attached, and I lost 1 liter of blood on the operating table. The surgery time doubled. I have an incision down the middle of my stomach that was unplanned, and it really caused a lot of aftermath complication too, but I survived it. And my mom was the only one in the waiting room because I could only have one. And my whole family that day were just glued to their phones, because the surgical time went longer. I remember opening my eyes. It was late and the team not being there. It was like closed doors. Everything was shut down for the night. Yeah. And I had went in bright early in the morning, So find out from the surgeon and his residents that he was telling me he was concerned that I wasn't going to make it.
Those were the first words he spoke to you.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been like, huh?
I know.
What? Like, thank you. What?
Ye-
Surgery went how? How am I? How did I do?
yes.
My God.
Yes. I mean, and those were the words that I received. You kind of remember the ones that are the most
Most impactful.
impactful.
Yeah.
Yes. Um, so yeah, I spent 10 days in the hospital. I gained over 20 pounds of fluid just from
Wow.
like the transfusion. And I had staples down the middle of my stomach that I had so much bloating that I thought like my staples were going to burst.
Mm.
And went home with 3 chest tubes and just had a ton of inflammation. Yeah. So thank goodness for my support system. I'm just so blessed to have had the people that had carved out that time. So 6 weeks I couldn't hold Maverick or carry Maverick. And I was breastfeeding before surgery. I had to put cabbage leaves, literal cabbage leaves in my bra to stop my production. So was breastfeeding, had to go formula. There was a lot of big changes, and luckily my mom had really flexible time. I have a retired mother-in-law. My brother-in-law flew in from California to help with all of my pill schedule, my smoothie making, all the things. And so I realized I didn't ever get to feel those postpartum. I didn't know what was postpartum
Yeah.
depression, and then like what
What was
was,
post-operative depression?
yeah,
Yeah.
it was really a time where I felt connected to Maverick, but in a way just completely disoriented to
Sure.
how to care for him. And
Yeah. Even knowing a lot of that story, just hearing it again and putting myself in the mindset, especially after just having gone through my own surgery a couple months ago, like, wow, it's a lot. It's a lot to process. And you probably weren't even knowingly allowing yourself to do that. So tell me, what was your self talk like going through this recovery? Because not only were you trying to heal yourself and do whatever you had to do, thank God you had a great support system. I love hearing that. You have, a brand new baby. You want to be there for him. What was going through your head at that time, and what motivated you to get through is that I can only imagine, because I know from my personal experience we're pretty dark. Are you still walking around in those leggings full of microplastics? I know. Seems like nothing is safe anymore, right? It's ridiculous. I recently started changing over my clothing to more sustainably sourced, no harm to me brands, and I have been obsessed lately with Woolly. It's made of 100% merino wool. Honestly, you have to try. Merino wool, it's naturally finer than your average wool, so don't think about like your grandma's wool, right? It's made of smaller, breathable fibers that actually regulate your body temperature. So I wore their leggings in the dead of winter when I was trying to get out every single day, even if it was 15 degrees post-op. I had not an ounce of body fat on me, so I was always freezing, and I was shocked at how it kept me warm and insulated on my walks. So obsessed. But it also wicks away moisture from the skin and is quick to dry. So really perfect for, now that it's getting nice out, we're going outside, we might be sweating a little bit. It's all good. It will regulate your body temperature. It's truly amazing. So I've been obsessed with their leggings. I also have short and long sleeve tops from them, which again are just so fine and soft to the touch. I was honestly shocked, and they're comfortable. They're cute. I mean, they have everything from like underwear to athletic wear. I can't wait to try more, but I had to tell you about this because I know honestly for a lot of people who are hyper conscious, I should say, about wellness are looking at the trending topic of microplastics in our Lululemon leggings. So if you're looking for high quality athleisure gear that won't add to your plastic burden, I highly recommend you try Woolly. They have everything, like I said, from athleisure to underwear, and you can get 15% off your first order using code JAMIEM15. That's JAMIEM as in Mazda, 15 at checkout. So head on over to Woolly, WOOLLY.clothing and check them out. Enjoy.
yeah. So I'll say the couple weeks before surgery, I Well, actually, once I got diagnosed, I was researching in a complete like fear-driven panic for my life mode, right? Like how long will I survive if I have this thymoma metastasize? Figuring out where I was at in those statistics and kind of drowning myself in the fear research and like the reality of what could happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really, really heavy. And I kept a lot of that in. It wasn't talked about what stage or what my path was going to look like until after I had surgery. But I started to put two and two together on my own. The internet and information is a blessing and a curse at the same time,
Absolutely.
and how you use that, like how you search and how you navigate that information, it is really detrimental to your well-being. I think that even though that happened, I think it needs to happen in order to get to a point to where you can feel strongly that you want to live so bad, that you have such a desire and a will, and to really put your why in the forefront of your mind. And then that's when things start to change and you start to type in Google, who are the survivors? What are they doing?
Yep.
And so that is what I started doing a couple weeks before surgery. Landed on some really powerful information, one of them being Radical Remission book.
Best book.
Yes. And then also our thymoma friend Owen was somebody that I was starting to follow, just like how you followed me, and just starting to be more aware of the fact that you can heal the body just by implementing these radical life changes. Like I didn't know, I didn't have the tools or the information. And I started accumulating this research kind of to myself, because at this point, my family, everybody was committed to the fact that I needed surgery, and that that that's what I needed in order to survive. My gut instinct was starting to tell me that I had opportunities to heal myself. However, given such like the length of the shortened window of time and the pressure and just giving birth, I had to make peace with the decision to have such an aggressive surgery. And that was really scary for me, is like considering what happened with my diaphragm. Like, I don't know what the longevity of that looks like, because it is such a rare thing to do.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of me where I was like, what if I just take 3 months, changed my life? And what if that would have worked? And
Right.
I can't look back and, wish I did something different. I knew that I did the best with what I could, with what I knew then. And, with researching and getting yourself in such fear, I think that surgery just propelled me to be able to focus on healing in such a intentional way that gave me more fuel to the fire of momentum and drive to research in a healthy way what I could do. So an amazing story I had, which was like synchronicities that happen along your journey. My friend had bought a massage for me a couple weeks before surgery. It was a gift with everything that I've been going through. She thought this massage would really be a nice offer. And she had this massage therapist. She had worked with her. She's also a life coach and really inspiring person. So I get to her and we just connected on such a deep level. And then I started asking her, do you know anybody that does breath work? And she was like, actually, I have a girl that's in the town over from me. So she didn't know where I lived. And we're only like 10 minutes away, that does breath work in her home. And so I was like, perfect, because I'm about to lose half my diaphragm. Figure that seems like a logical thing to start like focusing on.
Yeah.
And so I took her up on that offer. I started learning about the nervous system, how to activate your parasympathetic, diaphragmatic breathing, and then learn that she works part-time at a wellness center where they had a practitioner that was mentored by Dr. Thomas Seyfried, and
Wow.
she was helping people heal with cancer.
No way.
Yeah.
Gotta love when all this like magical juju happens. That's amazing.
Yes. So it was the week before surgery, I had my first consult with the clinic. So we had a plan of action. Right away, she wanted me to be doing ketosis and as much fasting as I could outside of surgery to get rid of that excess inflammation. And then once I was in a better place, we were going to be doing all the testing. She's in the functional medicine space. So she was, starting to prepare me for understanding my toxic burden. And what she helped me recognize is, say you have a toxic burden, you have an autoimmune issue. It's kind of like you have all these fires in your body. And when you have cancer, your immune system is so busy attacking other fires that it doesn't have its capacity regenerate those cells and reverse them and basically, the tumor is the protection, right?
Right.
Your body's way of protecting itself. And knowing that by kind of starting to put out the fires, that can give your immune system a fighting chance to attack the cancer cells, right? Or to at least reverse free radical cells. So that was a really new perspective that really was eye-opening for me, right? And so then I became just so intrigued and enthralled in assessing my body.
What a gift, because I actually wasn't sure how, and you and I have had so many conversations over the last year plus. I was like, do I actually know the story of how she got involved in more of like the holistic, like integrative side of things? It's almost like an answered prayer or something you put out into the universe, because just to back up, when we were talking about like your mindset going into surgery and you were sitting there filling yourself with information, but at the same time, I did the same thing, filling yourself with fear. And I remember a friend of mine who sadly has a son who's going through a cancer diagnosis, who's way too young. She was like, maybe try to join a Facebook support group, because I've learned so much as a parent for how to support my child. And there's something out there for thymomas. And I was like, I really appreciate that suggestion. But to me, there are two types of people that go into those groups: people who have like all the negative things to say and are just an emotional drain, and then people who have really great experiences. So the fact that you were able to put a halt to that, I don't want to call it self-sabotage, but sometimes ignorance is bliss, right? It doesn't mean that you're going to become the statistic. It doesn't mean those things are going to happen to you. You were then able to say, okay, well, let me change my mindset. Whether it was because you knew your why and you had your family and you knew you had something greater to live for. So you were like, let me reprogram and say, okay, what are the people doing who have healed? And Finding Radical Remission, which was the first book that I read at the beginning of my diagnosis. I was like, this is like a breath of fresh air, because it's all positive stories of healing in all different aspects. But then you were led to find this woman who is now helping you understand the things that were happening in your body that you had no idea. I mean, I think the majority of people who, I don't want to say choose to go the conventional route, because I think the conventional route is just what's handed to you when you get this type of diagnosis, but people who maybe don't seek out of the box unconventional ways of healing themselves, there is no discussion about the food you eat. There's no discussion about what you're talking about. These, autoimmune disorders, mold and heavy metal toxicity, digestive issues, mental health issues like histamine intolerance, whatever it is. Dr. Nasha calls them your terrain. There's no talk about that. So to be able to learn about it and empower yourself and now have this deep understanding to say, I'm now catapulted myself to the other side of surgery and I'm in this phase of healing. Here are tools that can actually help empower me instead of startle me and disable me and put me like a deer in the headlights to say, I'm going to become the statistic. So I love that story and that you were divinely guided to this awesome practitioner.
I had first met with her. And then I know you can relate to this, where I was starting to have all of this positive information. I wanted to set up a plan, but my circle around me didn't understand. So
Mm-hmm.
I had a really impactful and helpful meeting with my now doctor that I was seeing for my integrative health, oncology plan. And
Yep.
I had my mom, dad, and my husband sit down in an appointment with them and reiterate to them, what happens in discovering the root cause of disease and, why these fires matter to your fight with cancer. And it was something that was really needed because nobody in my circle had given me the information that I had found. I found it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets to be exhausting to be the only one that is aware and believes in those things.
Yeah.
So it was really critical for them to start to get on board. I started giving them books. I said, here, follow all of these Instagram accounts. Listen to this podcast. I was sharing podcast episodes that Dr. Nasha Winters was on, because that's how I really started elevating, was whatever she was on, I was listening to it.
Yeah.
So I had my core people that I was consuming information from and sharing it out, so that then at least I had everybody on the same page.
Yeah. Good for you. I had to do some of the same. My husband was actually the one who found Owen and who found the metabolic approach when I was in the hospital when I initially got diagnosed, and I was there for a week doing all the crazy tests. But I think because I had been living the holistic, health conscious lifestyle for years prior, I think he knew how important it was to me. So he was able to do research, also probably preoccupy his mind while he's scared shitless, and put that in front of me. So it was amazing to have his support. But my parents, even some of my friends, it's like, why not just take, I don't want to call it the easy way, but maybe like the more trodden path, right? It's like, well, why not do XYZ if it's worked for this person or that person? And it's just like, when you have a knowing, I think, in your gut and in your heart, and then you're also looking at other people who have gotten to a point where they're healed or healthy or in a good place, even if they're living with the cancer, it's like, well, that's how I want to be. It's really hard to put the blinders on and also set boundaries, I've found, with especially family members and the ones closest to us who just don't get it, because ultimately they want the best for us, right? But it's like, God, Callie, why do you have to take all these supplements? Or for me, I've got a lot of that. You don't have to take all these supplements. It might be making it worse. Stop spending all this money. Why are you doing all this? Why? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, because I want to feel good.
So, yep.
I want my quality of life.
Yes. And so once I got them in that understanding, it was like, oh, okay. Some of it could have been like hopeful thinking, like, oh, sure, this sounds attractive, but is it going to really give the promise? Is it going to live up to the promise that
Yes.
the concept has? And so throughout time, my doctor and I have the data to back all of this up. So my practitioner also became a terrain advocate under Nasha's program. So she knows all the lab work and everything to look into. So every month we started doing labs, and then every quarter from there, but we have the data that matches why this stuff works. When you think about dis-ease of the body, you think about chronic inflammation. Okay, well, what are those markers looking like? Well, from when I had my labs drawn in October after surgery, they were through the roof. So there's a couple, CRP and your SED rate. And those were in the high 30s after everything, which is off the chart abnormal. And then after implementing some strategic intermittent fasting, ketosis, and ways that are proven to remove the inflammation of the body, we then tested again. And so in February of that coinciding year, my inflammation went down to a 4. So people that need the statistics. I'm somebody that loves the data, and some of my family were the same. They're like, okay, I see, I get it now.
Mm-hmm.
And then they started learning for themselves and being motivated. So my approach has impacted so much, so many of the people around me, just because I have the data that's backing it up. And they appreciate that because it's a true testament to why diet matters. It really should be common sense, honestly. The health conversation isn't about nutrition and living closer to nature or various ways of how you should really optimize your health. It is all about the defensive side of once you get this because of this chronic inflammation, and all of these conditions that you're now getting and these over the counter medications that you're on to try to mask all these things.
Yeah, it's not proactive, it's reactive.
Exactly.
Yes.
So
Couldn't agree more.
I wanted to get to when I was talking about how I suffered a lot of pain in my 20s. Before my cancer diagnosis, I was used to having such mystery illnesses.
Okay.
And so when I was just 21, I started having bladder pain flares. I went in to the doctor, thought I had a UTI, came back negative, started doing all these tests and they were all negative. And they basically ended up diagnosing me with a chronic inflammation of the bladder wall called interstitial cystitis. On top of that, I was starting having like tinnitus and migraines, headaches, acid reflux. And when I would go to the doctor, they're all siloed. You see the urologist for your bladder.
Yep.
And then with my headaches, I wasn't really actively going to anybody for that. I would take ibuprofen or something. And then when I would have acid reflux, I would take Tums or Prilosec, and basically just living and managing my symptoms. I was doing some low acid type of diet, but none of that was getting to the root of why this was happening. And I suffered for over a decade, and there would be flares of up and downs. And it wasn't until I started assessing my terrain and getting all of the tests. So within functional medicine, if people don't know, you're typically getting your lab work. You're also encouraged to get a stool sample and urine test and things that measure the toxic burden and your gut microbiome. And that can help paint the picture of symptoms. And these doctors are very knowledgeable on like connecting those dots. And my doctor was like, have you ever lived in mold? And I had the aha moment that, so my husband and I have been together a long, long time, and got together when we were 18, and we lived together when we were in our 20s in an apartment. And we had a stack of DVDs that were in this corner by our TV and the HVAC unit right there. He decided to move them one day. And from moving all the stack of DVDs, there was black mold on the wall. And at the time, I was oblivious to what that could do to my health. But we had the maintenance crew come in. They just wiped the wall, essentially, and went about their day, and we lived there for 3 years. So that mold was directly connected into the HVAC unit. So we were absolutely breathing in airborne mold that can disrupt a lot of your immune function, your endocrine system, your detox pathways, all of these things. And the symptoms of mold can be the very things that I have talked about. Not always is it an allergy response. Like, they could be, everybody processes different toxins and burden differently. So the common things would be, oh, you should be fine. You don't have like allergies. And you would never think to connect to these types of like mystery dots to mold, right?
Right.
So that was a really big aha for me that then we did a mycotoxin test. Sure enough, I had high levels of mold in my body. So throughout my journey, we've prioritized and pivoted within each quarter. We'll have our priorities reassess. And then not only that, I'm intermingling nutrition and sauna and learning how to take better care of my detox support. So with dry brushing and sauna and certain supplements and all these things. So we're taking some of these off-label drugs to be able to excrete these toxins effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been a very long and hard journey where I've suffered some pretty severe detox symptoms. And, you know, I have that deep foundational belief that what I'm doing is getting me to a point of homeostasis of the body, bringing my body back into balance so that the cancer can't develop any further.
Yes, yes. I mean, you just shared so many insights into the world of we work with somebody who's trained in functional medicine, and it very much is root cause analysis and looking into all of these problems that you may not get answers to from a conventional doctor. And they are able to connect the dots. So thank you for sharing all of that, because truthfully, I don't know that I've talked about that as eloquently as you just articulated. You know, there are things like mold toxicity that is so common. I'm sitting here thinking, and I've thought about this often. I had black mold in my college bathroom, and we had a slumlord, and he did not give a crap about what was going on. He was like, yeah, okay, same, like wipe it down. Or we would like wipe it out when we were cleaning the bathroom. You know, I hate to say this, but there were 6 girls living in that house. I was there for 2 years. I was the second person in the household to get a cancer diagnosis in my 30s. So you sometimes wonder, was it that? I'm sure something that contributed. And everyone and every body is uniquely different in the way that we're able to handle a toxic burden. I think there's so many different things that play into that, and things like properly detoxing your body. I never knew anything about that. I was on antibiotics my whole life for my skin, which disrupted and destroyed my gut. So nobody ever talked to me about using a sauna, proper techniques to get your body to move your lymphatic system. So I think we can both say that we've learned so much by working with these doctors. It's really been eye-opening for how to thrive. And I was one of those people for the last 10 years working as a health coach. I felt like a fraud because people are like, you're the healthiest person I know. How did this happen to you? But there's this whole other side of taking care of our bodies properly that we're not taught and nobody talks about. So thank you for bringing all that to the surface, because I think it's a very important piece of the healing process. If you are listening to this episode and thinking, I have a serious healthcare diagnosis, I've been dealt the cancer card, I want to have support around ways I can heal myself using naturopathic healing, and I need somebody who gets it, please take advantage of this opportunity to work with my naturopath, Dr. Lori Bouchard. Dr. Lori was nice enough to offer a free 30-minute strategy call to dive deep into your personal needs, understand more about your unique diagnosis, and see how she could help. So if you have been listening to my episodes, maybe you listened to my interview with Dr. Lori recently, we talk about cancer as a metabolic disease. And when you look at it from that lens, you need to work on your metabolic health, whether that is focusing on your nutrition, focusing on certain things in fitness, maybe fine-tuning your supplements, working on the mental health healing process. This is all encompassing and something you'll learn in the Metabolic Cancer Reset Program. This program is designed by Dr. Lori. It is an incredible program where not only do you get one-on-one time with her, you dive deep into your lab work that you look at in a very specific naturopathic lens on a monthly basis. You also get access to her weekly group calls. So it is a great way to have resources, connect with other people who are going through something similar and who can understand what you're going through. You also get a program with Dr. Lori. So in her Metabolic Cancer Reset Program, she provides multiple videos talking about getting into ketosis, about nutrition, about fasting, different ways to even work with the conventional side of treatment. If this is something you're interested in, or maybe you're thinking, I really want to send this information to a friend, to a coworker, a family member, a significant other, somebody else who may be dealing with a significant healthcare diagnosis of their own and they're looking to get support on their healing journey, Dr. Lori is providing a free 30-minute strategy call. Take a look at the description of this episode. I will link it below. I promise it will change the game in terms of your healing process. So I hope you enjoy, and thank you, Dr. Lori, for that gracious offer.
And I think for you, when you say you felt like a fraud, I think that we do all have a mission and purpose that is planned for our lives, and that you found that early on, and that this diagnosis only brings more light to your knowledge and your empathy for work with your clients and a better, more universal way of having that background, even though I totally can relate with feeling it doesn't seem to make sense. You're healthy. And people had said that all to me too.
We're young,
But I think that there was that kind of subconscious level of knowing that I needed to be healthy because things were starting to add up for me. And I think maybe you getting into the career of health, there were things that were top of mind for you that, work these clues into the puzzle of life of what you're going to be truly invested in down the road.
Absolutely. I remember when I went through my training to become a health coach, and I said, even if I learn just something about myself, this will be worth it. And for me, the mission at the time was really clearing my cystic acne up. So I started experimenting with diet, taking out dairy, working on my gut health, all these things. Eventually, years down the road, going off birth control that were going to help what I'm going through now in the long run. And thank you for saying that. It's a nice reminder of how far I've come and how much I've learned in this 1.5 year journey, thinking that I knew so much about health. I've learned a lot, and I think you and I are both learner mindset. Is a blessing when you get faced with something like this, because it allows you to change your perspective and shift and say, what was the lesson in all of this? And I would love to pass that question to you. What do you think was your biggest lesson in this journey, and what was the gift that this diagnosis brought you? And I think for some people it's hard to hear that question and say, this is not a gift, but I know you're somebody that can handle that question intelligently and probably have a beautiful answer.
Oh, no pressure. Okay. So biggest lesson, I would have to say that symptoms are messages of the body, and that they are a gift. Just how cancer can be a gift, symptoms can be a gift. Because of my past and ignoring symptoms for a long, long time, I think that ended up burdening me with a more severe diagnosis than I ever anticipated at such a young age. But because of these symptoms and my ability to now, it took stage 4 in order for me to really fully get it and to change my life. And that's kind of a big lesson for me, was that I didn't realize how much I truly was struggling to really find meaning and purpose, and having that pain to purpose come to the forefront of my life, and then being given the blessing of Maverick in between has just progressed the value of my life more than I could have ever imagined. So the lesson in all of it, and the takeaway that I want everybody to hear, is that symptoms do mean something, and there are so many resources available to us to dive in and become more attuned. And even if you're not externally wanting to do the research, really trying to hone in on your intuition and your gut instinct about if something is off is something that I've really had to learn and accept within myself, instead of making excuses against something or living in this denial that it wasn't really a big deal. That is something that I'm done with. And I'm allowing myself the space and energy to care for myself. And it took many, many years for me to get to this point where I can go to a family function and everybody knows Callie's doing her own thing and we're all good with that. That's fine. Yeah. There's no judgments, there's no criticisms, there's nothing at this point, whereas in the past, I was treated a little bit differently for wanting to be healthy or having different needs, some by family, and then others just kind of giving you shit for being so picky.
Diligent.
But now they're like, okay, we get it. Well, we get it now.
Yeah, we'll back off. Yeah.
Yeah, it took a lot to get there. And now it's a reflection on what they're doing.
Totally agree. I have always said to people, being a coach for as long as I have, I think the family dynamic and external social pressure comes up in conversation all the time. Like, it's easy to, and I've found this to be very true for myself too. I'm sure you can agree. It's very easy to adhere to your own protocols and like keep the bumpers on when you're home alone or when it's just you and your husband and you're just feeding yourself. But when you go out to weddings or parties or family gatherings, it's like, well, then there's so many other factors involved. And I think people mean no harm in wanting to pressure you and say, oh, Callie, let your hair down, have a drink, have the cake. It's okay. Like, be normal, do this, do that. And I think you and I were just having this conversation where I was like, well, fuck it. Sometimes I just want to be the human. I'm very realistic. But when you continue that habit and kind of forgive yourself all the time and you're giving into other people's wants and needs for you, it's really like their own insecurities to say, well, why do I feel the need to pressure her to do that? Does that make me feel good? Does that make me feel like I'm less alone for wanting to eat this way or do this thing or numb those feelings with alcohol or whatever it is? And it takes a really solid mindset and level of self-control to be able to stick to your guns in those situations.
Well, and honestly, the symptoms that I face are just not worth it.
Yeah.
If I could eat dairy and my digestive tract is good, nothing happens, my face doesn't break out, fine. But that's just not the reality for me. I am a sensitive person, and it's taking me that long to accept the fact that I am a sensitive, reactive person. But I do believe that the more and more I continually to heal and repair my gut and my nervous system, I can receive that food differently. I don't believe that I have to live this way forever. And maybe I choose to, and that's my choice,
Yeah.
And if I never drink again, that's my choice too. But my goal is to heal myself so that I can better receive whatever it is that I'm consuming. So when you get diagnosed with cancer, your nervous system, it goes into fight or flight. You're in sympathetic. And when that happens, your consumption of everything is skewed, and your gut actually can't process things as effectively. That's something that I've learned. And then on top of that, the inflammation and all the response that trickles. So right now I'm really tied to this nervous system retraining and belief that I'll be able to have a conventional dairy product one day and receive it and not have my body just completely be like, no, don't do that.
Yeah.
Sound the alarm. There are success stories of that. And as of right now, I feel good when I'm in my lane and I make some good food. Like, there is no sacrifices to be made. And if I know I'm going somewhere, I bring my own dessert that I can have or whatever it is. I find alternatives, and people can see that if you go on my social media page, Heal with Cancer.
Yes.
I have some recipes
in the description.
Yeah. I want to be realistic with things need to be simple, but then also I like to be creative in the kitchen, and I want to keep my foodie spirit up. So, eating this way has been more fun and a creative outlet for me. I always find the way to make things fun. Whether it's my sauna blanket, I'm maybe watching a movie that I want to watch or something. Everything that I'm doing, I'm ensuring that I feel good about it and that I can stick to it and that it's rewarding, and that time is not only benefiting my health but my spirits, because I've learned to enjoy the mundane of the day in and day out. Living my life as my medicine has been a beautiful gift to come out of this experience, as you asked me, is just embodying the way that a healthy person with a healthy mindset lives. And now I can go to functions and not have a drip of alcohol, but I feel like I've emotionally repaired a lot of wounds from my past that had made me want to have the alcohol in the first place.
Yeah. So beautifully said. This is why I love you so much. And this is why I couldn't wait to have this conversation with you. You've brought up so many good points throughout this entire conversation. But I think so many people, I don't know if you've gotten this too, I'm sure, but so many people look at what I'm doing and it looks to them like work.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that's a lot. Why are you doing all that? It can look like work, but instead you're choosing to shift your mindset around that and say, this is my life now. I'm choosing this. Let me make it fun. Let me make it enjoyable. Part of my day. Let me make it something I can look forward to. And when you look at it like that, it eases the stress, the tension. It makes it feel less like a to-do list and more like a want to do list. And I couldn't agree more with that perspective, because it is important. You're putting yourself in the driver's seat of your own health. We are choosing to live this way, right? Nobody's got a gun to our head. No one's forcing us to do that. But we realize, and if you're listening to this conversation and you're like, this is way over my head, this feels like a huge leap forward, this feels like such a drastic change compared to where I'm at right now, start small. Start with one thing. And I'm sure you can attest to it too. It's like you try to throw all the tools in the tool belt and the tool belt weighs you down and you fall over because it's a lot. It's a lot of change to make all at once. I know for me, I had some of these things that I was already used to doing, like the eating well. So then it was like, okay, well, I'm eating less frequently or I'm eating more fat. So I'm just dialing that up. That wasn't a huge change for me. It was like adding the supplements, adding the IVs in, all these other things, one thing at a time, one day at a time, one step at a time. Every little thing you do is going to be a microscopic movement in the right direction. But I really just loved what you said about making it enjoyable and making it fun, because that is the meaning of enjoying life no matter what you're doing. So thank you for saying
And
it that way.
if somebody has to really evaluate like their capacity to make these things fun, then that is something that you really have to face within yourself. Like if you
Yes.
are completely stressed every single day at your job, I'm sorry, but your job isn't worth your health being depleted. And I know it's easier said than done, but when you're given a diagnosis like this, utilize it as your excuse to do what it is necessary to declutter the stress in your life. Have that audit of all of your physical, mental, emotional stressors and start figuring out ways to eliminate those things. And that's the hardest work, is going inwards and getting real with what it is that you need to let go of. But once you start getting outside of that and creating the space, then you get to see the beauty in all of it, like we're talking about.
So just to back up, I think this can help tie everything together with everything you shared. What do you feel were the top 3 things that were most important and impactful in your recovery, being surgical recovery or just your recovery with this diagnosis in general?
Yeah, I like how you put diagnosis in general, because when I received the question, I'm like, well, technically I'm not in recovery. Like the chapter isn't behind me. It's still very much there, and I don't like to say that there is active cancer, but there is still disease progression that has been very slow, sometimes stable, which has been a blessing that it has been slow and we've been able to monitor things that are successful. And I do contribute a lot of what I do to the fact that sometimes I've had a scan where there'll be no growth, and sometimes there'll be a scan where I've had a little bit of growth. And typically I can kind of correlate what it was that might have contributed to that. So it can be, I don't like to say that like it's when I let loose and,
Sure.
but when I am more honed in on the nutritional element, especially blood sugar balancing, I really see some alignment. And actually right now I have a CGM monitor.
Continuous glucose monitor. Yeah,
Yes.
girl.
And I'm just kind of learning about what really triggers those spikes.
So interesting.
It is very interesting.
Anything
And
that surprised you?
yeah, I had a salad the other day where I used a little bit of honey to just sweeten it up, and my blood sugar spiked. And I had like a foundational salad with apple cider vinegar, avocado,
Yeah.
like
All the
healthy
things.
fat, all the
Yep.
things, and it spiked like crazy. And I took a
Wow.
walk after.
Wow. Everybody
So,
is so uniquely different, right? Yeah, that
yes.
happened to me a lot with, I mean, no surprise, sweet potatoes and like even like the Granny Smith apples. Like, damn.
Oh,
Even after a
yes.
sleep, I was like, and I still eat them sometimes, but
A big win recently was a sourdough bun with a burger.
that is a big win.
Yes. But going back to the three most important things to recover from such really scary diagnosis, I would have to say is the ability to get to the point where you have such a strong desire to live and heal, coming from a place of like radical acceptance, accepting the diagnosis, accepting what may have happened in your life to get there. I think about the analogy of your bucket overflowing and maybe tending to look back and sit on what those factors were for you that overflowed your bucket with what led to a progression of dis-ease in the body. So really coming to terms with those things and facing those are very crucial. That's why I really highly recommend that book, Radical Remission. And then my second one would be treating my life as my medicine, as I talked about. So embodying and becoming the healthiest version of myself and really feeling that and embracing it. Finding the fun in the mundane of the day to day stacking of habits and things that I at first felt like I was burdened with and was throwing the kitchen sink at. But this has given me the opportunity to take a look at them differently and to be able to have a different perspective is really important, and still enjoying life. If you're not enjoying life when you're in this process of healing disease, then I would really challenge you to start creating and even scheduling areas of fun and making the things that are hard fun. I know it's easier said than done with people that maybe don't want to face some serious trauma that they have, or things that maybe are inconvenient when you have a family or whatever it is. But I think that everyone can get on board with you being able to create that space for yourself. This is the time to be selfish.
Yes. Inner work is never the easy work.
And then the third one, I am just truly grateful that we have come so far in the advancements of the resources that are available to us at our fingertips. I can imagine when I hear about people's journey to heal from cancer back in the day and not having the resources we do now is unbelievable. And now it's actually a matter of being able to decipher which path might be right for you because there's information overload. But when you utilize the information and ability to dive deeper into your own intuition, as well as working with a practitioner to have a tailored approach, that is when the magic can happen and you can stray away from constant comparison and questioning of what you're doing, and have that safe space of, I don't like to say protocol because I feel it's your way of life now, but it makes your way of life a lot smoother. And when doubt creeps in, continually hone in on yourself and your own needs and Your intuition can guide you. You just have to get familiar and in touch with it.
Yeah. I love these answers because they are not necessarily tactical as they are energetic. And like we're saying, the inner work, the perspective shift, the mindset change, the embodiment of it all, the taking it and applying it to your life lens. These are such beautiful things to remember when you're going through the process and when you are building your protocol or your path. The inner work, in my experience too, has almost been the most important priority, because without that, without having that firm ground to stand on, without trusting your gut, which was something I struggled with a lot. You and I could have a 3-hour conversation about that alone. I remember finding you and finding an interview that you did on YouTube, and I listened to the entire thing and I was just like, wow, so many of the things she's talking about I can relate to. Is that what affected all of this? We're all uniquely different. We all have some common threads, but I think it's such an important piece of it all, because if you're not putting this external pressure on yourself and allowing everything to bubble up inside, you're just releasing, you're trusting your internal compass, finding the right resources that can be the support to you. It's like changes everything. It really does. And I think the most inspiring thing out of everything you said that's really sticking to me is finding the joy and moving through it all, because we're not promised tomorrow. You know, what got me through this, good or bad? Jamie, you could get hit by a bus tomorrow. This could not even be what takes you out. So enjoy the little moments in between all the big things that you need to accomplish, between all the obligations that you have. That is life. This is it. And this is the card that we're dealt, but maybe it's because we're strong enough to handle it. As much as that sucks sometimes when people say that to me, you're so strong. I'm like, I don't always want to be strong. But here I am, because how else am I supposed to be? You know, so the fact that I found you and some of these other girls and we can share these insights with each other, and as we're learning, as we're growing, we can share these experiences. It's something nobody else understands. And I hope that more people don't have to understand this, but it gives such a different perspective and enrichment to my life in a way that I don't think I ever would have understood if I didn't have this shake.
You know, it's really real and raw for me to say. When I was in my 20s and I was suffering and didn't have answers, mystery, illness, not connecting the dots, I could say I wished upon myself something to give me like an excuse to just really figure everything out that was going on with me.
Mm-hmm.
It almost felt like I wished upon myself to have something disrupt my life so deeply that I could reassess and figure it out and start over in a way. That sounds so crazy to say, but that is where this diagnosis is such a gift, because it has allowed me that freedom to release a lot of that pain. And now I can tell you that my interstitial cystitis hardly flares. I hardly have headaches. I feel so empowered to have the control, to have taken the driver's seat and to actually see results happening.
Yes.
And that I had so deeply desired for a long, long, long time.
Yeah, it's wild the way life happens, right? Yeah. I remember saying to Nick a few years ago when we were struggling, trying to conceive, I was on all these medications, seeing so many doctors, trying these stem cell treatments, crazy procedures. And I just remember looking at him, and I remember exactly where he was. He was walking up the stairs and I was in tears. I was like, is there something serious wrong with me? Obviously, at the time, we had no idea. I'm like, what else could it be? Unexplained infertility to me is not a thing, you know? And it's almost like I had this gut instinct in knowing that something was wrong, but we couldn't figure it out. And it wasn't until my eyes started acting up that we did. Yeah, it rocks your world, and then it opens up this whole new canvas to say, okay, here's what you thought you knew about life, and here's all things you may have perceived as issues or challenges and unexplained symptoms that were brewing, and now we're going to help you make sense of it all, heal it, open your eyes, make you understand why you went through all of this. But yeah, this isn't for the faint of heart.
Mm-mm.
It's a lot of life lessons, and I'm just so grateful that you were able to speak to all of that so eloquently and share that, because I know somebody listening to this conversation, it's going to completely open up their eyes to seeing life much differently.
And maybe don't freak out if you're not somebody that has cancer and now your symptoms are attached to cancer.
Right.
I didn't mean for that, but I just want to strongly emphasize that symptoms can be looked at as message. And I think that
Yes.
everybody should feel more empowered with their health.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Two more questions, and I think then we can wrap. So, what advice would you give to somebody who is newly diagnosed with cancer? Maybe just your top tip.
To sit in silence with yourself for however long you need. Get out all of the anger, all of the emotion, scream it out, cry it out, wrap yourself up in a hug. And I think I've already talked about just start processing why this might have happened, and maybe what stepping stones can you make to help you get a clearer picture on your own personalized path moving forward? How you, being the driver of your own health, want to accept and now put yourself in control of your healing and what that looks like, and think about things that may have maybe resonated with you, whether it comes down to the pillars of physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, and figure out kind of some tactics that you can start incorporating in your day-to-day life that can check those boxes, because those are the pillars of transforming your well-being. And if you start giving yourself space to assess those areas, that should help you in then being able to put yourself in the next step forward, and day by day collecting your way of healing from this diagnosis.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you for that. It's an important question to ask, and I think it was a great answer. Not that I'm ever judging anyone's answers. We all have unique answers. But you're on the Forward Think Tank. I ask everybody the same question to wrap, and people always learn from these. What keeps you moving forward in life?
Life is beautiful. It is a lot of ups and downs, but I know that I hold the power to create a quality life, and each and every day I have the opportunity to make that happen. And it excites me to know that each day is a gift, and that I have my son, of course, to raise, and to see his childlike wonder only brings that into me. So I feel so blessed to have that in my life, and be able to instill my new way of thinking upon my toddler, who is just taking information like a sponge. It's been such an opportunity to be able to create his own subconscious programming in a way that is aligning with who I am today.
Yeah, beautiful. And he is such a cutie, and he's so blessed to have you as his mama, guiding him through this crazy life. Thank
Thank
you
you.
for sharing that. I couldn't wait for this conversation for good reason. It was such a fantastic one in every way. So thank you for being so thoughtful with all your responses. Thank you for taking the time to do this with me. It's a conversation that I will cherish. Selfishly, I'm so happy that I started this podcast, because I have all these conversations to look back on. Whoo, Jim. But finding you and having your friendship and having you to talk about the shittiest of days, but also the best of days, and all the learning curves and resource sharing, recipe sharing, it's been such a gift in my life. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your light. I mean, you just have such a presence with everything you say. And my gosh, you're only so far out of surgery, and you're doing all this. And I love you.
I love you. I feel called to do it. It's like I say, if I could help even just one person by sharing these stories with all of these beautiful people and doctors and healers that I've been very fortunate to have put in my life, then
Mhm.
like that's the point. So thank
So
you.
beautiful.
Love
Yes.
you.
Love you.
Did you enjoy this episode? If so, I would appreciate you taking a moment to please leave a 5-star review. Every review helps visibility with this episode to reach more people. And I am on a mission to help people learn alternate resources to support themselves in their healing journey on their road to health. So please take a moment to leave a review, leave a comment. I read every single one and I respond back. And of course, the most helpful thing you can do is to share this episode. If you found it helpful, if you found it entertaining, please share it on social media, send it to a friend, a loved one, someone you think could find this helpful. It means the absolute world to me. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening, and I will see you soon.